On a mysterious coastline, amidst the gentle whispers of crashing waves, a mermaid accidentally witnesses a horrifying crime. The groom, on his wedding night, has murdered the bride, hiding a brutal secret behind his radiant smile. Having seen the entire tragedy unfold, the mermaid cannot stay silent as she feels the deep call of justice rising from the heart of the ocean. This dark tale slowly unravels shocking secrets, each one pounding harder on the hearts of those who listen. Do you dare to follow the journey of punishment carved by fate and the bitter road to redemption? Follow African Tales. Best now, so you won't miss a single breathtaking moment of this chilling, unforgettable story. On the vast, windswept fields of old Georgia, where gentle breezes whisper through rows of ancient trees, each leaf seems to pass along sorrowful tales woven by time itself. Nestled quietly in the heart of this untamed wilderness, there lies a small village, hidden from the world. Here the people still cherish their ancestral values, honoring the legacy of their African-American forebears, those who once sowed the seeds of a rich culture, full of humanity, resilience, and timeless spirit. Amidst this peaceful setting, a grand event was being prepared, a wedding, radiant with promise and overflowing with joy. But no one could have imagined that on the very night of that honeymoon, fate would strike cruelly, shattering the lives of two families. Malik, the groom, was the son of one of the wealthiest families in the village. On the outside, he appeared charming, polished, and refined. But behind that elegant smile, he harbored a greedy, ruthless heart. For years, Malik had secretly nurtured a horrifying plan: to use marriage as a weapon, a way to seize the bride's immense inheritance for himself. Consumed by his lust for power, he was willing to sacrifice love, even his own humanity, just to control his destiny and her family's fortune. In silence he plotted, calculating every detail. Patiently, dangerously, he devised a way to end the life of Aisha, the bride, a woman known for her gentle soul, her radiant beauty, her pure heart. Yet no one could see that behind her soft smile, a tragedy was waiting. Spun from the dark threads of Malik's wicked intentions, the wedding night unfolded under a romantic, sacred atmosphere. Candlelight flickered. The warm glow of lamps danced gently, casting dreams across the grand banquet hall. Melodic music echoed in the air, mingling with laughter and blessings, wrapping everyone in a false sense of perfect happiness. No one knew that within the quiet shadows of the royal bedroom, Malik's twisted plan was already in motion. With cold eyes and a heart full of deceit, Malik moved like a ghost, calm, determined, unshaken. He masked his deadly intent behind a flawless performance, crafting what seemed to be the perfect beginning to a blissful marriage. When in truth, it was the start of an inescapable nightmare. In that moment, time seemed to hold its breath, the universe as if mourning stood still, forced to witness the cruelty of man. Aisha's beauty, her innocence, now faced a monstrous threat, and the magic of the wedding crumbled into chaos and darkness. Malik, once a favoured son of a proud family, had become the embodiment of greed, a living reminder of the terrible price that comes with betrayal. And in a single heartbeat, the destinies of two families, once tied by love and promise, were violently overturned by ancient curses and the mystical power of nature itself. As if the universe had spoken, no one escapes the fate they create with their own hands. With every breath of that wedding night, every flicker of candlelight, every lingering note of the music, there came a whisper of fate, a warning of what was to come. A tragic journey was beginning, one where sins would be paid for, where greed would be punished, and where justice, though long delayed, would finally rise. As laughter and blessings slowly faded behind the closed doors of the banquet hall, the joyous atmosphere of the celebration began to shift, subtly, eerily, into a heavy silence, like a curtain falling to conceal the darkness lurking beneath. Malik, his eyes cold, his soul clouded in shadow, quietly took Aisha by the hand and led her into the royal bedroom. The room was lavishly decorated with vibrant fresh flowers and dim flickering lights, a setting that felt both romantic and mysterious. Everything seemed to blend perfectly, creating a scene that shimmered with love, as if the couple were reaching the peak of happiness. But in that very moment, just as Aisha breathed in the tender air of the room and let her heart trust in the warmth of newfound love, Malik harbored a monstrous plan. No one knew that in his possession he carried a carefully crafted poison, a toxic substance he had studied, refined, and perfected in secret. And the moment Aisha inhaled the peace of that sacred space, Malik, without a second's hesitation, administered the poison into her body. Within moments, Aisha began to lose consciousness, the light fading from her eyes as she quietly slipped into a silent slumber, as if fate had already chosen her end. In that brief, haunting moment when Aisha drifted into confusion, Malik took advantage of the silence to enact the next step of his dark design. With skilled, calculated hands, he moved swiftly, meticulously. Leaving no trace, he lifted Aisha's lifeless body, once a symbol of beauty and gentleness, now reduced to a victim of savage greed, and carried her to the cold, desolate riverside. Under the pale moonlight, her silhouette resting beside the sorrowful waters vanished into the mist, a silent grief too deep for words. But the story did not end there. Malik, a man burdened with an enormous debt from a failed international trade deal, one that threatened to ignite a brutal conflict between nations, was desperate. Killing Aisha wasn't just about silencing a witness, it was a means to a cruel end. By seizing control of her family's vast fortune, he hoped to repay his spiraling debt and shield his family from the storm brewing in the world of high-stakes diplomacy and commerce. Every step, every move had been calculated with ruthless precision. He cleaned the evidence, manipulated the paperwork, and secured the assets, all under the pretense of duty, while in truth, he was stealing salvation at the cost of a life. But as in all tales of horror, fate does not allow evil to escape unscathed. Malik may have believed everything was flawlessly arranged, that no one would know, but the universe has its own way of revealing the cruel ironies of life. His vile actions did more than plunge two families into tragedy. They awakened forces far beyond his understanding. Ancient curses began to stir, whispers of the voiceless, of spirits long buried, now called out against injustice. The royal bedroom, once a sanctuary of love and celebration, had become the silent witness of a dreadful conspiracy. Every flicker of candlelight, every fragrance of blooming flowers, now carried the chilling breath of a merciless destiny. And as darkness fell, the spirits of nature began to murmur, signaling that every sin must be paid for. Malik may have succeeded in taking the first step of his scheme, but fate had already set in motion a chain of events that could not be undone. The path of punishment was just beginning. The ancient curses, the power of nature, were quietly preparing a tragic reckoning, a moment when every hidden truth, every shadow of evil, would be dragged into the light of justice. That night, as darkness draped the sky and only the pale moonlight illuminated the eerie outlines of the world, Malik, the cunning groom, quietly carried out the most disgraceful step of his plan. After hiding Aisha's body beneath the cold, murky river, he slipped away into the silence, leaving no trace, no sign that a heinous crime had just been fulfilled. Only hours later, as the weight of midnight slowly melted into the stillness of sleep, rumors of the bride's strange disappearance began to spread. like chilling whispers echoing through every corner of the village. Malik believed he had succeeded, that he had erased every clue, deceived fate itself, and secured the vast fortune belonging to Aisha's family. But what he didn't know was that this night of destiny was only the beginning of a chain of consequences from which no evil could escape. At that exact moment, beneath the shadowed veil of midnight, a mermaid named Layla, graceful in form, her glowing bronze skin shimmering under the moon, and golden eyes burning like fire, was gliding along the shores of Georgia Bay. Layla had witnessed countless events of nature and the darkest sides of humanity. She often remained still, silent, a watchful witness to fate's unfolding. What Malik could not have known was that as he secretly stole Aisha's life, a pair of sharp, unblinking eyes were watching, eyes that saw everything. Hidden behind a large boulder near the shore, Layla observed quietly, memorizing every detail of Malik's despicable act. Not long after, as the river's cold waters churned and the ocean breeze danced over the sand, the air began to echo with a haunting stillness. A melancholic melody rose from beneath the surface, like a lament from restless souls beneath the waves. It was Layla's song, a song of the sea, of compassion and ancient power. Her voice carried across the wind, gentle yet piercing, declaring one eternal truth: nature's justice never sleeps, and no crime, however hidden, escapes its reckoning. Layla could feel it. Aisha's spirit, though silenced, was not at peace. Her pain, her injustice, her unspoken cry had summoned protection, and the mermaid could not, would not, stand by while evil grew hungrier in silence. Her golden eyes, like twin orbs of burning truth, shimmered with sorrow, but also with defiance. Her tears, glistening like pearls, were more than sorrow. They were a vow, an oath sealed by the sea itself, to protect justice and expose every dark secret. With calm determination, Layla moved toward the shore, not rushing, but gliding with the grace of a ripple upon the sand. Under the moon's silver gaze, her figure emerged, humble, yet otherworldly, the embodiment of natural justice, unmoved by the greed or cruelty of men. She was no longer just a silent witness of the past. She was the voice, the force, that would speak. She would not let any wicked deed escape the light of truth. Within Layla's heart, Aisha's sorrow burned like a flame. Yet in that same flame, her mystical strength blazed even brighter. She knew only the justice of nature, of soul, could restore balance. Evil could not hide forever. With her enchanting voice, Layla sang, and in her voice a fire was lit that could never be extinguished. No one can escape the justice of nature. Injustice, no matter how deeply buried in darkness, will always be revealed under the light of truth. Her voice was not a song, it was a verdict. The ocean's decree passed upon Malik's wickedness. Layla's presence, with her ethereal beauty and untamed power, was not just a warning to Malik. It was proof. Justice always lives. Even in the quietest moments, the spirits of nature had not been silent in the face of injustice. And the mermaid's voice, rising from the deep, marked the beginning of a new fate, one in which evil would pay dearly for its sins. With all the warmth of her compassion and the force of the sea behind her, Layla stood ready, as the voice of justice, the guardian of truth, to prove that no crime would ever escape the light. Layla did not carry only the enchanting song of the sea. She declared herself a messenger of justice, one who would never allow wickedness to hide beneath the mask of darkness. With her mysterious beauty and eyes that burned like wildfire, she began to spread the terrifying tale of Malik's wedding night, whispering it into every corner of the village. Her words, like echoes from the ocean, slipped through every house, every winding path, until the villagers began to feel the weight of a dreadful secret hidden beneath the veil of false happiness. The people of the village had always believed in the omens of nature, in the instincts passed down by their ancestors for generations. And now, as whispers of the horrifying wedding night spread, their hearts trembled with shock. And a fury began to rise, a fury that could not be contained. Murmurs, fearful glances, and furious whispers filled the air. Yet despite the storm brewing in their spirits, no one had solid proof to expose the cruelty of the groom. Malik, with his wealth and influence, still managed to cloak his crime beneath the armor of power, leaving the villagers feeling helpless, as if justice had slipped beyond their reach. But fate never favors those who hide in the shadows. On a stormy night, beneath a sky heavy with sorrow and nature's tears, Layla appeared, unannounced, at Malik's doorstep. Rain poured mercilessly from the heavens. The wind howled through the trees, echoing like the cries of the earth. Waves crashed in the distance, and in the midst of it all, the mermaid emerged, her face resolute, her presence thunderous as if she bore the strength of the entire universe within her. Her hair danced with the wind, her glowing brown skin shimmered beneath the dim light of the storm, and her golden eyes, burning, mysterious, ignited a new fire in the hearts of the villagers, the fire of belief in natural justice. Layla stepped forward without hesitation, her voice rising, clear, commanding like a decree from the ocean itself. No one can escape the justice of nature. Every crime comes with a price, and the greed of the wicked will be paid for. Her words struck like lightning across the blackened sky, igniting fury and courage within the villagers. Though they had once relied only on intuition, now they felt something greater, a force awakening, preparing to seize the wicked in its grasp. Yet Malik, defiant, continued to deny it all. Shielded by his power and privilege, he dismissed Layla's accusations as the ramblings of a mythical creature, a fantasy, nothing more. He claimed no one in their right mind would believe the word of a mermaid. He was confident that the truth would remain buried, that no evidence would rise to condemn him. He twisted facts, manipulated doubts and clouded minds, leaving the villagers uncertain, torn between what they felt and what they could prove. But deep in their hearts, the image of Layla remained, unforgettable, radiant, and unshakable. Her words echoed like a sacred prophecy, a reminder that every wicked deed must one day be repaid, even if justice was not yet ready to strike. Beneath the stormy sky, her haunting song lingered, feeding the hope that nature's justice was coming, that the truth would soon rise, and that no criminal could ever outrun the wrath of fate. That night, as rain beat down upon rooftops and wind roared through the trees, the villagers slowly gathered. Their spirits, once shaken, now surged with newfound faith in the truth that Layla had delivered. They knew, even if proof had not yet emerged, the voice of natural justice had already spoken, and a day of reckoning was near. A day when every crime would be brought into the light, and justice would never be forgotten. Layla did not carry only the enchanting song of the sea. She declared herself a messenger of justice, one who would never allow wickedness to hide beneath the mask of darkness. With her mysterious beauty and eyes that burned like wildfire, she began to spread the terrifying tale of Malik's wedding night, whispering it into every corner of the village. Her words, like echoes from the ocean, slipped through every house, every winding path, until the villagers began to feel the weight of a dreadful secret hidden beneath the veil of false happiness. The people of the village had always believed in the omens of nature, in the instincts passed down by their ancestors for generations. And now, as whispers of the horrifying wedding night spread, their hearts trembled with shock. And a fury began to rise, a fury that could not be contained. Murmurs, fearful glances, and furious whispers filled the air. Yet despite the storm brewing in their spirits, no one had solid proof to expose the cruelty of the groom. Malik, with his wealth and influence, still managed to cloak his crime beneath the armor of power, leaving the villagers feeling helpless, as if justice had slipped beyond their reach. But fate never favors those who hide in the shadows. On a stormy night, Beneath a sky heavy with sorrow and nature's tears, Layla appeared, unannounced, at Malik's doorstep. Rain poured mercilessly from the heavens. The wind howled through the trees, echoing like the cries of the earth. Waves crashed in the distance, and in the midst of it all, the mermaid emerged, her face resolute, her presence thunderous, as if she bore the strength of the entire universe within her. Her hair danced with the wind. Her glowing brown skin shimmered beneath the dim light of the storm, and her golden eyes, burning, mysterious, ignited a new fire in the hearts of the villagers, the fire of belief in natural justice. Layla stepped forward without hesitation, her voice rising, clear, commanding, like a decree from the ocean itself. No one can escape the justice of nature. Every crime comes with a price, and the greed of the wicked will be paid for. Her words struck like lightning across the blackened sky, igniting fury and courage within the villagers. Though they had once relied only on intuition, now they felt something greater, a force awakening, preparing to seize the wicked in its grasp. Yet Malik, defiant, continued to deny it all. Shielded by his power and privilege, he dismissed Layla's accusations as the ramblings of a mythical creature, a fantasy, nothing more. He claimed no one in their right mind would believe the word of a mermaid. He was confident that the truth would remain buried, that no evidence would rise to condemn him. He twisted facts, manipulated doubts, and clouded minds, leaving the villagers uncertain, torn between what they felt and what they could prove. But deep in their hearts, the image of Layla remained, unforgettable, radiant, and unshakable. Her words echoed like a sacred prophecy, a reminder that every wicked deed must one day be repaid, even if justice was not yet ready to strike. Beneath the stormy sky, her haunting song lingered, feeding the hope that nature's justice was coming, that the truth would soon rise, and that no criminal could ever outrun the wrath of fate. That night, as rain beat down upon rooftops and wind roared through the trees, the villagers slowly gathered. Their spirits, once shaken, now surged with newfound faith in the truth that Layla had delivered. They knew, even if proof had not yet emerged, the voice of natural justice had already spoken, and a day of reckoning was near. A day when every crime would be brought into the light, and justice would never be forgotten. On a gloomy evening, as the sky was painted in shades of deep crimson and ghostly clouds drifted slowly overhead, Malik wandered aimlessly through the dense, unending forest. Each step he took felt heavy, as if burdened by the weight of a guilty soul, swallowed by the haunting presence of untamed nature. And then he felt it, a shift. Something had changed in the air, as though every tree, every gust of wind was bracing for an inevitable reckoning. Through the rustling leaves and the distant call of birds, a small stream suddenly appeared, weaving between stones and roots, composing a soft, mysterious symphony only the wild could understand. By the edge of that stream, a silhouette emerged. A woman's figure, bathed in the flickering light of the setting sun, began to take shape. Her skin glowed like polished stone, softly lit by the fading daylight, and in her deep, sorrowful eyes shimmered the tragedies of nature itself. She stood there, carrying the weight of memory, of sins unforgotten. Then her voice pierced the silence, gentle yet filled with power. It echoed like a prophecy, spoken from the very heart of the earth. Do you not know that your greed has opened the gates to nature's wrath? The words gripped Malik's heart like a vice. He knew in that moment that no sin could ever escape the judgment of the universe. It was her, Layla, the mermaid, the embodiment of ocean's power and compassion. No longer just a witness to human cruelty, she had come to confront Malik, face to face, to remind him of the horror he had wrought. Under the dying sun, surrounded by whispering leaves and the murmur of flowing water, she stepped closer. Her voice, warm but resolute, rose like a verdict carried by the wind. Every sin demands a price. You took Aisha's life, but her spirit lives on in the hearts of those who loved her, and now you will face the ghost of your own greed." Each word stabbed through Malik's soul, unraveling the tangled web of guilt within him. He could feel himself unraveling, piece by piece, as if her words had awakened something cold, something ancient, something inescapable. From that fateful meeting, Malik's descent continued. A journey of punishment, soaked in fear and regret. Every day brought new torment. Rainstorms came without warning. Winds howled like voices from beyond. And every night, he was haunted by strange whispers and the echo of a voice he could never silence. On moonless nights, beneath skies torn by clouds, he would hear it, Aisha's voice. Or perhaps it was just his guilt, crying out from within. Each time it reached him, it hollowed his chest, echoing with a pain that could never be silenced. A reminder that her life, her love, had carved itself into his memory forever. But it wasn't just her voice. Layla too lingered. She visited him in dreams, sometimes gentle, other times towering and fearsome. Her voice always the same, echoing like a chant from the deep. Learn to accept repentance. Only then can the soul be redeemed. Her words came not as comfort, but as a bitter medicine, necessary but hard to swallow. And yet, Malik resisted. His heart, hardened by greed, clung to denial, unwilling to let go. Only the faintest spark of hope remained, a flicker in the black sky of guilt and shame. Every whisper of Aisha, every warning from Layla, echoed through his soul like signs from nature itself. They were messages, reminders that no one can outrun the past. Each step Malik took, each breeze, each drop of rain carried a warning. Sin is never forgotten. And as his nightmare deepened, he began to realize, no matter how far he ran, fate would always find him. The voices of the past, the spirits of justice, would never let go. In the dark, in the storms, in his dreams, Malik was finally forced to face the harsh truth. Every wicked deed has a price, and no one escapes nature's judgment. But in the end, amid the chaos, through Layla's voice and Aisha's whispers, a fragile light began to flicker, the faintest spark of repentance, a hope that maybe, just maybe, redemption was still possible. Even if the road ahead was long, dark, and filled with trials. After the horrifying wedding night had passed, Malik's tragedy did not end with the private torment of his guilty soul. Instead, his boundless greed and thirst for power drove him down a far bloodier path, a ruthless campaign of conquest, igniting ambitions to seize the wealth of neighboring lands. With a cold heart and a calculating mind, Malik quickly assembled a hardened army, brutal warriors, meticulously trained and willing to sacrifice everything in pursuit of glory. Under his command, violent campaigns were unleashed one after another, striking down peaceful villages, raiding bustling cities of distant nations. Each battle erupted like a raging storm. Malik toppled leaders, claimed treasures, and began to rise as a symbol of unmatched might. On the battlefield, he spared no tactic, from cunning deception to savage cruelty, all to plunder and dominate with terrifying efficiency. Every victory, every conquest, fed the fire within him. Power and wealth consumed him. Arrogance crept in, infecting his every thought, every step. To Malik, everything, everyone, became a tool to serve his ambition. Compassion, mercy, were no longer part of his world. But fate has a way of humbling those intoxicated by their own greatness. At the height of his conquests, when Malik's name echoed like thunder across the land, betrayal began to creep in, silently, like a shadow in the dark. Those very warriors who had once stood beside him, who had fought and bled in his name, now felt the tug of their own greed. Blinded by the lust for glory and wealth, they began to conspire. While Malik was focused on expanding his newly conquered territories, They plotted in silence, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Then came the fateful night. The battlefield was tense. Malik was preparing another assault, confident, distracted. And his once loyal guards, the very ones he trusted most, struck from within. In one swift betrayal, they seized his riches, plundered the treasures he had hoarded from countless victories. Gold, jewels, power, everything, gone. Reduced to ashes in the hands of those he once called brothers. The betrayal cut deeper than any enemy's sword, not from a rival, but from those he believed would stand beside him forever. And in that moment, a phrase echoed through Malik's soul like a curse from the heavens. What belongs to the earth returns to the earth. It felt like a prophecy. One he could no longer outrun, the haunting memories of Aisha's death, the weight of his own cruelty, all came crashing back. He finally saw true strength was never in gold or conquest. It was in loyalty, in trust, in the hearts of those who stand beside you, not in fear, but in faith. But that trust was shattered, broken beyond repair. The days that followed were filled with silence and loneliness. At night, as the wind howled through broken branches as nature itself seemed to mourn, Malik wandered through the ruins of his own empire. He remembered it all, the certainty with which he once believed that power was the key to everything. But now, there was nothing left but ashes. Ashes of an empire. Ashes of greed. Ashes of friendships burned to the ground. The betrayal of his comrades, those he once considered family, left a wound that no time could heal. And the phrase echoed still, "What belongs to the earth returns to the earth." A warning, a truth, that when greed overpowers humanity, nature will never let it go unpunished. Malik, once a mighty figure of war and dominance, had become a ghost, a remnant of power long gone, a man hailed by outsiders as a conqueror, but now defeated by the weight of his own soul. It was a brutal lesson, one for all who dared chase power without mercy. That arrogance and greed never last forever. And in the end, justice, though slow, will always rise. It will haunt every heart, test every faith, and bring even the strongest to their knees. Stripped of all his riches, Malik fell into a pit of utter isolation. As if all the glory and wealth he once took pride in had crumbled into dust, blown away by the wind. The savage greed that once fueled him now withered into a deep, unrelenting regret, a burden that grew heavier every time he recalled that horrific wedding night, the night he murdered Aisha, his beloved bride, to steal her inheritance. That sin clung to him like a shadow, never letting go, never letting him rest. As days slipped by, Aisha's image crept into every dark corner of his existence. In his sleep, when Malik tried to escape the nightmare of reality, she returned, like a spirit unable to move on. Her sorrowful eyes, her fading smile, haunted his dreams, whispering reminders of the terrible sin he could never undo. Each time he gazed into the night, her presence rose again, like flames devouring his soul, burning him with the pain of loss and unbearable remorse. But it didn't stop there. Even in waking moments, Aisha haunted him. In the misty mornings when cold winds slipped through cracks in the walls. In stormy nights when the skies wept and fog swallowed every path, Malik would see her. At every bend in the road, in every reflection on rain-soaked glass. Aisha's figure stood silently, watching, following, never letting him breathe in peace. She was no longer just a memory. She had become the voice of justice itself, the one truth he could never outrun. In those moments, when the wind howled through the trees, Malik would sometimes hear her voice, faint, carried through the air, a whisper from a distant past, a plea for justice, a lament from a soul that had not found peace. Each whisper, each gust, sounded like a warning. The past does not let go, and every sin must be paid for. Malik felt the fear rising inside him, a silent terror. For no matter how he tried to bury the truth beneath layers of power and gold, the truth was alive, and it was watching. The haunting became a shadow he could never escape. Every gloomy afternoon, as drizzle fell gently from the skies, Aisha would appear again, on the edge of the road, her eyes full of sorrow staring right through him, telling him that all things come at a price, even the sins of the past. He lived inside a nightmare he could not wake from. Every whisper of the wind, every drop of rain, became an accusation, a curse from the past that refused to be silenced. And when night fell, the loneliness deepened, his guilt, stacked like heavy clouds pressing down on the sky of his soul. In the silence of midnight, with nothing but the sighs of the wind and the ache of memory, Malik sat alone, face to face with himself and the sins he could never erase. Aisha's face, her distant smile, her broken eyes, hovered in his mind like a mirror, reflecting every lie, every wound, every loss he had caused. She became the storm within him. He no longer knew peace. He no longer knew escape. Every time he stepped outside, every time his mind wandered, she was there. A reminder that fate's justice never sleeps. Fear and regret became his only companions, like two dark wings folded around his chest, crushing the air from his lungs, suffocating his soul. And so Malik lived in torment. Aisha's presence weaved through every dream, every waking moment, a voice that whispered bitter truth. No wealth, no power can ever buy forgiveness from the past. His greed had made him an enemy of his own reflection, and every passing second became another shard, a piece of a broken soul that would never be whole again. Forever Aisha's spirit would follow him, not with wrath, but as the relentless judgment of the past. A quiet, eternal sentence. A reminder that the price of greed is always paid, in sorrow and in loss. Just when Malik seemed completely consumed by guilt and loneliness, trapped in a life with no escape, a stormy night arrived, howling like fate itself, sounding its alarm. At the desolate riverbank, through roaring winds and pounding rain, Layla, the legendary mermaid, appeared without warning. Waves crashed violently onto the shore. The sky churned as if it were about to tear apart, and through the chaos, Layla approached, radiant, commanding, yet cloaked in solemnity. Her golden eyes, sharp and cold, carried both the silent sorrow of the ocean and the uncompromising force of justice. In that gaze was a message that no sin could ever escape nature's reckoning. "You conquered wealth through blood and greed," Layla declared. "But what is stolen will be taken back. The thief becomes the victim." Her voice echoed like thunder within the storm, and time itself seemed to pause. The weight of her words struck Malik's heart with crushing force. His thoughts blurred, fear and regret tangling until he collapsed, shivering by the river's edge where cold rain merged with rushing waters. Layla knelt beside him. Her eyes were not distant. They were full of memory, pain and warning. She began to speak, retelling the entire story Malik had tried so hard to bury. The savage wedding night, the murder of Aisha, the greedy rise to power, soaked in violence, the betrayal of his loyal guards, the fall of his empire. Every detail, every drop of blood, every broken life. "You took from others with force," Layla said, her voice cutting through the wind like blades. "And fate took it back. Your greed has stripped you of everything, and not just riches, but happiness, and nothing can fill the hollow of a lost soul." Her words pierced deep, reopening the wounds Malik had tried to silence. Each sentence wasn't just an accusation. It was a truth he could no longer outrun. In the chaos of that storm, beneath the flickering glow of lightning, Malik felt something shatter inside. He remembered those countless nights by the river, haunted by loneliness, by guilt. He saw Aisha's face again, his bride whom he condemned to death, now a permanent ghost carved into his soul. Layla's voice rose again, steady and fierce. You thought power and wealth would buy forgiveness, but nature always balances its scales. No one, no matter how strong, escapes the price of sin. Malik had nothing left now but sorrow, fear, and a shattered heart, forced to face the memories he had spent a lifetime trying to outrun. And Layla? Layla stood beside him, like the embodiment of nature's reckoning. She was not just a messenger. She was a witness, a force, a flame of justice in the storm. Through the sound of falling rain and crashing waves, her voice rose like a final judgment, a fire lit in the wind. No matter how well you hide behind power, the past never forgets. Her words seeped into the deepest corners of Malik's soul. They stripped away every illusion, every wall, until only the truth remained. And in that moment, amid the storm, beneath the weight of destiny, Malik saw the final truth, to redeem his soul, to ever find peace again. He would have to pay for every sin, for every drop of blood, for every treasure taken with violence. And so, as nature roared around him, Malik was left with only three things: regret, fear, and the eternal reminder that what is taken from the earth will be returned. The price of greed will always be paid, and it will never let go. Standing before the majestic force of Layla and the ghosts of his past, Malik finally felt it. There was no other way forward. No more illusions. No more hiding. In the middle of the storm, with rain falling in sheets and the wind howling like nature's mournful cry, Malik dropped to his knees at the riverbank. Rain and tears blurred together, streaming down his face, and before Layla, now a living symbol of justice and compassion, and before the haunting memories he could no longer escape. Malik confessed. He wept, his tears soaking through his clothes, as he poured out every crime he had committed, not just the murder of Aisha, his beloved bride, but the greed that had led him to steal, conquer, and destroy innocent lives. In that moment, amidst thunder and the crashing storm, Malik was stripped of all the pride and power he once clung to. His heart trembled, shaken by a truth he could no longer deny. Repentance must be more than regret. He realized then, redemption could not come from words alone. It would require action, real change. A life rebuilt in service to those he had wronged. At that turning point, Malik made a vow. He would create a bridge of prayer. Not one built from stone or steel, but a movement of people united in healing, repentance, and compassion. He pledged his life to freeing Aisha's spirit, to bring her peace, to restore the light he had stolen, and through that journey to rediscover what truly matters. Each prayer, each tear, each apology he spoke became a living testimony, not only of his guilt, but of his fragile humanity. With Layla's guidance, Malik began the long road of healing. He returned, in silence, to the lands he once ravaged. Villages scorched by his conquests, communities once torn apart by his greed. He came not as a ruler, but as a man changed, a man seeking redemption. He did not just return stolen wealth, he walked from home to home, helping rebuild what he had broken. With bare hands, he repaired walls, planted fields, and cleaned the ashes of war. He worked tirelessly, pouring his heart into restoring the lives he had shattered. At first, the people were wary, doubtful, hesitant to believe a monster could change. But over time, through steady hands, kind words, and unrelenting effort, he began to mend what was lost. Little by little, trust returned. Though Malik knew nothing could ever erase the horror of his past, he never stopped. Each day of service was a step forward, a silent prayer, a chance to prove that even the most fallen soul could still choose the light. His plea for forgiveness was no longer a cry in the storm. It became a way of life. In every act, in every breath, he became a living reminder that true transformation is possible no matter how dark the past. And so Malik walked the path of redemption. He carried the lessons of pain, betrayal, and pride like a weight, but also as fuel. The appearance of Layla, with her fierce wisdom and the elemental force of nature, had ignited a truth within him, that no matter how deep the sin, humans can change, and they can find their way back to love, to community, to grace. His heart, once cold and hollow, was warming again, softened by kindness and lit by a fragile hope. In the cold rain, beneath the roaring wind and churning river, Malik continued his journey, step by step, slow but steady. He vowed that no matter how dark the past, Aisha's soul would not suffer in silence, and that the justice of fate, though harsh, would grant him one final chance to atone, to be forgiven, to come home. This was the path of healing, the road back to his humanity, to his people, and to the forgiveness of nature itself. Though Malik had endured countless trials, he continued to face challenges, not just from nature's wrath, but from the very people he once wronged. Every turn in life, every storm, every cold wind that cut through his skin felt like a reminder of his sins, of the dark past that could never truly hide from the light of justice. To the villagers, Malik was still met with wary eyes, bitter glances and whispers that struck sharper than any blade. And in the midst of it all, Aisha's presence, his beloved wife, whom he once destroyed in the name of greed, never faded. Her memory, her sorrowful gaze, lingered beside the quiet, powerful voice of Lila, the mermaid. Together they were the constant echoes of fate, reminding him that every sin carries a price, not just in riches lost, but in the weight pressed upon the soul. Through trial and suffering, Malik slowly began to understand there is nothing more valuable than a genuine repentance. Every tear shed across his weary face, every step taken in pain, began to turn old wounds into hard-earned lessons. The harsh words from villagers, the sorrow in their eyes, were no longer daggers. They were reminders that to heal the wounds of the past, he must surrender pride, power, and greed. And so Malik changed. From a ruthless tyrant, he became a gentler soul, a man learning to love again. The bridge of prayer he built, a place not of stone but of unity and healing, became a beacon of hope. There people gathered to mourn, to forgive, to grow. His story, once a cautionary tale of greed and cruelty, began to evolve into a lesson of transformation, that even the gravest of sins could begin to find redemption through sincere remorse. Slowly trust returned. Even those once shattered by Malik's cruelty began to believe again in the possibility of change, in the power of forgiveness. Though Aisha's spirit still lingered in his heart, Malik now understood. Only through compassion and action could he move forward. He journeyed back to the lands he once conquered, this time not as a thief, but as a man seeking to make amends. He rebuilt homes, he returned stolen wealth, he restored hope. One act of kindness at a time, and through it all, he never gave up. Not on the people, not on the future, not on himself. One quiet night, after a storm had passed and the sky began to clear, Malik returned to the river where it all began. Mist hovered over the water, and in the distance, a soft yet powerful voice rose. Layla's song. The mermaid appeared once more, not with judgment, but with serenity. "You have learned a painful lesson," she said. "Remember, greed only brings loss, and what is taken by force will always be returned." Her words were like cool water washing over Malik's broken soul. They offered both comfort and a reminder that the road to redemption was long but still open. She urged him to continue, to bring light to the places once darkened by his hunger for power, to heal with love, not fear, because only through compassion could the deepest wounds be mended. Though Aisha's memory would never leave him, Malik now understood that every act of kindness, every step toward healing, was also a step toward peace. And so, standing at the edge of the river, Malik made a final vow: to live every moment in service of those he had once hurt, to make every breath a chance for healing, no matter how winding the road ahead. As long as he walked with hope, the light of redemption would guide him. Layla's words echoed like a sacred melody in his soul, a fable, a truth. Every wicked act must be paid for, but forgiveness comes to those who truly repent. And from that moment on, Malik, once a feared conqueror, became a living symbol of change, of hope, of the belief that no soul is beyond saving. As the night gave way to dawn and golden light broke through the clouds, Malik stepped onto a new path, a journey not just of redemption, but of love, of faith, and of belonging. The story of Malik, Aisha, and Layla was far from over. It was only the end of part 1. A new chapter awaited, one where a broken world might heal, where a fallen man could rise, where a community, and the spirits that watched over it, could build a future rooted in kindness, forgiveness, and light. And Layla's final words remained: keep walking. Let the lessons of greed and redemption become not your burden, but your beacon. And so, as the sun rose, Malik walked forward, toward a new beginning, a new light, a new chance to be human again.